We're on Daf Ayin with based. Omar kisvu get liishti v'achazei kurdiyokus. V'chazar v'Omar al tichtevu ein dvarav acharenim klum. If a person said, write a get for my wife, and then he got kurdiyokus, then he said, don't write the get for my wife. He did. We don't listen to him because he had. As Rashi says, it's a certain demon that happens when you drink a lot of wine. Why? Because we assume that he's crazy, so we don't trust him when he says al tichtevu get liishti. Rav Shimon Lakish koisvin v'neisen get lealter. Rav Yochanan Omar ein koisvin ela lichtiyishtaf. Even while he's ill, because he said to write a get, we don't say he's a shaitan, he's not able to be megadish. Rather, we are megadish because he originally said to divorce his wife. That's where Shlokish is different. Rav Yochanan says, no, to write the get, we don't write it. Until we get So it's interesting that, what's an afkamina sof basof? If anyways, we're going to wait until he gets better. I guess during that whole time that he wants to write the get, he's like, his status is in limbo. My time that Shlokish is medayik from the Mishna that his later words don't mean anything. Oh. Rabbi Yochanan Omer Loch ein b'dvarav achreinim klum tilechi mitzil lo yitzorach lemihader luchi bei. That when he gets better, you don't have to ask him again. You just need to have das. So we know that he originally said to give his wife a get. So you don't need to get new permission again. You just need to wait till he gets better. We don't write it until he gets better. But Mike, what's machlekes? Shlokish compares someone who has kurdiyokus to someone who's sleeping. So the moment the guy gave his shlichus, you don't have to. He doesn't have to be awake. You're his shliach. The guy's sleeping. Rabbi Yochanan compares it to a shaita. The Gemara asks the question for Rabbi Yochanan Nami. Rabbi Yochanan Nami lidmei liyoshin. Why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan compare it to someone who's sleeping?
I'm really sorry.
So the Gemara answer is Yoshin le mechusar ma'isa. I'm mechusar ma'isa. A Yoshin, he doesn't need to have a cure. Just wakes up. This guy, he needs to have a cure. Rashi says you need to have bisra sumka gumri, which is lean meat on coals, like we said before in the Gemara. That's what we got into the whole medication, the whole study of medications. But Shlokish Nabi did me the shaita. Why doesn't Shlokish compare it to shaita? Shaita lisame biyodin, haisame biyodin. A shaita doesn't have a cure. This guy has a cure. This is sumka gumri v'chame marka. You have to have lean meat on coals and wine that's diluted. Did Rav Yochanan say this? Let's say the guy was slaughtered. And he hinted to say that you should write a get to my wife who's still alive. You write the get. The Tanya and it says Ra'u Meguya the Tzolav at sleeve of Rome Zoma Kisagat Lisha Likasvit, no? He was cut into pieces or he was strung up on crucified. 1 second, I'm just gonna actually mute.
The green beans, the yellow green beans and the green in the fridge, you wanna cook it?
Yeah, so the Gemara says what happens if he's meguya, you should write it. So the Gemara says like this. Hochi hashto. Hosam daita tzilusihi bekhishusahu de yaschilabe. Over there, he has a das He's solo. He's clear of mind. He's sound of mind. His koyach, he doesn't have the ability to say something, to talk, but he's able to be meramis. Here, here, he doesn't have his das, his mavubal is mixed up. So the Gemara asks Shailo, says that if a person, his signs were shechted, or the majority of his two pipes were shechted, and he ran away, you could testify that he's dead. So how could we assume that he's alive? How could we write the get for his wife and assume that he's alive? If you get the simshas ma'isa, you could testify that he's dead. And for the Gemara, no, the Gemara asks if you think he's alive, why could you testify for him? Alive and he's going to die. So the get is mechayim. Now you have to write the get quickly. Obviously, if you're going to take your time, then you could assume he's dead. If he's going to die, there's somebody shachs him by mistake, you should go into golas. Tanya, why? What do we see? That it says in the Brayso that if he shachted his simonim, you don't go into golas. So we assume he's not dead. It's a raya that we assume he's not dead. Gemara answers. We're chayish that maybe it was only because of the ruach that he died, not purely because of the shchita. Or he himself caused his death to happen faster. Now, still Soifei Lomos, he's eventually going to die, but because it's not purely because of him. What?
Thank you.
So the Gemara says, "My binayu, ikabenai the shachate bevesa the shisho firkus." Shachted him in a house of marble with that has there's no ruach. It's like a sealed house. Obviously, very unusual. And then he moved, so he was makarev misasi, but there was no. According to the shita, that if you're makarev misasi, it takes it away. So. So this also is makarev misasi, but there's no ruach. Inavi the shachate bevor of because you shachted him outside where you have ruach, but there's no fair case. Doesn't sound fair, but okay. Okay, so the next part of the Mishnah was nishtatik. We said in the Mishnah that if he became a mute, you check him. As long as he's able to say 3 times alav lav al hein hein, you could rely on what he's saying to write the get. Fragt die Gemara, nishtatik warum nicht to get leashed. Maybe he's not really saying no. Maybe it's a certain type of shigoyin that's teaching him to say a lav val hein. Oh, sorry, 1 second. The Gemara says, maybe he has a certain shigoyin that's telling him to say no or yes. Not that he really understands what's going on. Say it again. You do it out of order. You do it like in pairs. To say it again, nakte. The shaila is that maybe there's he also has the shigoyin for the say it again. You do it like mamish, 1 time yes and 2 times no, and so 1 times no, 2 times yes, 2 times no, 1 times yes, and so on. From the yeshiva Rabbi Shmuel, he taught. We tell him things of the winter, the summer and the winter, and so on. When you check him, you ask him. you ask him if he's looking for things that are fit for him, be Maisachama, and now it's Maisach Shom, and so on. So you really have to have a sound mind to be able to understand what's going on. To be able to see if he understands what's happening. Mind you, what are we talking about? If you're going to say we're talking about glufkari, which is a certain type of cotton coat, like a linen coat, sorry. Visdine and sheets. It could be that even in the summer, he's cold. So he needs to be warm in the summer. He wants to have warm coats and so on. Or in the winter, maybe he's hot. You speak about certain types of fruits that are not found in the season, then you'll be able to see what he's able to be, what he's able to handle. Okay, we're up to the next page.
Yes. Sorry, just a point. Sometimes you have people that they can answer these questions quite well, but they're still certainly not of sound mind. Like you could have a person with schizophrenia, you ask him questions, he can answer them okay. You just let him talk, and then you really he goes off the well.
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, we're not talking about schizophrenia. We're talking about a guy who can't talk anymore. Right. He had like some sort of a stroke, I guess. So the question is if he's able to understand. So maybe that's different. I don't know, but it's interesting.
I'm saying answering yes or no to questions is I mean, there's a certain capability, but it's not a proof of sound mind. That's all I'm saying.
Right. That's true. Interesting. Well, obviously you don't have to have complete sound mind, just enough to be able to give the get. It's like a bare minimum. What?
Maybe it's a kula that the rabbis instituted so that the wife can divorce him.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Probably. They just need the bare minimum of the bare minimum.
Yeah.
If you have a chedesh that's able to write, he's able to write. We were speaking about that before. If you're able to write, you can write, then it works. Rashi says like this: he was a chedesh that was a v'keach when he married her, and his kiddushin is complete kiddushin. So the problem is, if you become a chedesh afterwards, you're not allowed to divorce her, because the gedushin of a chedesh cannot take away the kiddushin of a chachama. Rav says that if he's able to speak, that he knows how to write, he says, you so-and-so should write again for me, that's considered a bikeach, and you're able to write it. Rav Yosef, my kamashmalon, Rav Yosef says, what are you trying to teach us? Tanina, lechad, we already learned. Nishtatik, v'amrli, nichtav get liishtachav. Here can Bereisha, Bitkin, is shlesh bam, bam, lav, lav, hinin, liishtav, v'vitnu. It says in our Mishna clearly that you can check him with his nodding of his head. Rav Zayda, Alam Kamrat. Rav Zayda says our Mishnah is talking about an Alam, somebody who's able to hear. It's because he's able to hear, we're able to check him. But a chedesh, you can't hear. So therefore, the bare minimum for him is writing. And with not for Rav telling us, we wouldn't have known. Shiny Alam, Shiny Elam, the Tanya, it says in the Brayz, Badab and Shun Zeu chedesh. If he's speaking, you don't hear it's a chedesh. Shemei Ven Badab Zeu Elam, Zev Zeu Kepikhun Chod Divrayim. Both of them are considered like a pikech midrabanan. So chedesh Badab and Shmei is a chedesh. It's not the chedesh of the chacham, says Rashi. That's like a shoyta. He's like a pikech. Chedesh of Kana is mamish, is loy medaber leishemei. It doesn't speak. Then how do we know that someone who speaks and he doesn't hear is a chedesh? Someone who hears and he doesn't speak is considered an ilim. I'm a chedesh who doesn't hear, and I'm like ilim who he's not able to open his mouth. That stands for ilim, ishtakil. His words are taken. If I have a question, Rav Kana, this is my shaila. it's not a question of why he had to teach us. Of course he had to teach us. Even a chedesh is able to write, we trust him. Now, what's interesting is that according to this Gemara, I'll go upon him, a chedesh who is a deaf mute and you make sign language with him, that's not enough. He literally has to write. That's what it sounds like. That's interesting. You would think that if he's able to make signs, what's the difference? Who cares if he's a... But like you're saying, it's Nisha Zay Pasha. You can have a guy who understands, who's able to answer yes for something, but he's mamish meshugana. So I guess a chedesh mamish, someone who's a deaf mute, we assume he was not of sound mind. Now the question is, today the status changed. Today we have better tools with which to teach him. I'm not sure. In other words, the fact that he's deaf mute makes him a shaitor because he can't learn anything. Probably because he can't learn anything. Nowadays, that he could learn something, maybe it's different. I'm sure it's a sugya somewhere. I have to check into it. So the Gemara says, so this is the question. If you're going to have a question, this is the question. The Tanya says in the Brayso, if you don't talk, this excludes an Elaim who's not able to talk. So you're not chayiv a carbon. It says in the carbon shavua, Elam is not going to be chayiv a carbon shavua say this. Let's say they made him make an oath and he made a sign with his head. So the Gemara asks, based on Rav Khan, Omer Rav, you could write if you're saying writing is considered something. Writing is not just here Kimberesh, it's even more advanced. Omer Le'abaya, Eidus Kamrat, you bring from Eidus. Eidus is a different mice. Shiny Eidus, Rachman Omer Piyam Olympics of him. When it comes to Eidus, the Torah says from their mouths and not from the mouths of their ksav. That you should be made bebezdin. You can't compare it to a shtar that they signed it on that day. That is urchabachi. That's the normal way. However, now when it comes to these people, however, it's not the Eirach. So therefore, we're not makel, we're not lenient for them to write. We say that you have to say it because they can't say it, they're not going to be chayiv shvua say this. Meisveh is a question. It says, "Kishem shabayit k'noisam legittin kach bayit k'noisam l'masoisam l'tanis leidus v'lerushis." Just like you. It's very difficult now because of Elul, so it's like very busy. I'm sorry. It says like just like you check them for Gittin, the guy nodding his head, you also check when it comes to sales and also Eiduyas and Yerushes. So Shaila is Ketani Mes Eiduyas. There is such a thing as Eidus when it comes to somebody who's not able to talk just through nodding his head. Kolshkim when it comes to writing. We're talking about to testify that a woman's husband passed away. So we're lenient in such a situation. It's aguna. It's a different story. It says Yerushes, which is also an edus. He's to be made that a person is passed away, so his son is able to take over the property. Rabbi Abo, Yerushas b'nei abacher ketani. Yerushas b'nei abacher. Now, Rashi explains, we're talking about if you want to turn your Bechur into one of your sons. It says Yerushas b'nei Bechur. You're changing Mishpat to Yerusha Shal Torah. You want to change your son, your Bechur into regular. Probably you're being made for people, for buying and acquisitions. Masa and Matan. We're talking about for himself if he wants to make a sale. So the Gemara says like this. Meisveh is another question. So state, it says clearly that a chedesh you only rely on his hints and so on when it comes to metaltalin, movable items, or not for a get. And our Mishna says you do rely on him for a get. So is there a contradiction? Gemara says tonight there's a machlekes. The Tanya, it says in the Brayso, when does this apply? If he's a full chedesh from the moment he was born, that we don't trust him for anything. But if he became a chedesh later on, who kaisavein chaismin? He writes and they sign. Rashi says he doesn't have Iksav Yad of Das. He never had a day of Tzlula. However, if he would became Bikech when he's Charish, then who Kaisavein Chaisman? So Frek the Gemara Kasha, Bechedesh Meikore Loi. What if he was a Chedesh Meikore? Why not? Just like he married Beremiza, he should be able to divorce with the Remiza with hints, with signs. And for the Gemara, if we're talking about his own wife that he had married, fine. If it's a Yavama. Yavimta Miman, who did he get a Yavama from? He lamed enough Lemechov. If you're going to say he got it from his brother. Chedesh Geshem Sheknisos Mechav Chedesh from his brother's a Chedesh. Geshem Sheknisos Beremiza Kachitzios Beremiza. Just like he marries her with a hint, so he can divorce her with her hint. Rather, we're talking about from his brother who's a Pikeach. His brother who married as a Pikeach. His brother had a valid marriage, and now he's a Yavama. His wife is a Yavama. He can't do Chalitza because he can't Omar v'Omar. So there's a big problem. There's no Chalitza. Frekti Gemara, Chedesh, not Frekti Gemara, sorry. The Gemara answers, if you want, you could say, we're talking about the Nofle Mech of Chedesh, Gzeidas, Gzeida Ech of Chedesh, Atu Ech of Pikeach. There's a Gzeida from his brother who's a Chedesh, because of his brother who's a Pikeach. Frekti Gemara, Yochi Ishtei Nami. If so, if you can make a Gzeida on his brother who's a Chedesh, that there's a problem with doing Chalitza for her, even though the condition of his brother was also like a chedesh, we should also make a gzeira on his own wife that he shouldn't be able to divorce. You can mix up one yivam with another. Ishta be but not a wife with a yivama. Okay, I'll be there in like 5 minutes. We'll get up to the Mishna. The question is there such a gzeira? Do we have such a gzeira of a chedesh atu pikeach? But Tanan, we're turning to page 9, Aleph on base. If you have two brothers who are chershin, who are married to two sisters who are pikchos, or two sisters who are chershes, two sisters, one is pikachas, one is chershes, or two sisters who are deaf mutes who are married to two brothers who are of sound mind. But the two brothers who are deaf mutes, in other words, vice versa. They're potter, they're exempt from chalitza and yibum. There's no chalitza or yibum at all. And if they were nachriyas and one of them passed away, they're not related, then what do you do? In other words, if they're sisters, of course you're exempt. Obviously. What if they're not related? Yikonsu, you could do yibum v'imrotzu le'yitzion yitziu. Afterwards, if you want to, you could give a get because the condition was not a good condition. So we see clearly that there's no problem. There's no gzeira. Rather, it's our original answer, which is that we're talking about bikeach. Okay. The chavedim of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel are arguing with him, even if we're talking about a bikeach when he's charesh. You cannot be megarish. 3 minutes, I'll be done. Even if we're talking about a pikech when he's charish, you cannot be megarish. And even if you know how to write, you cannot be megarish. No matter what, you cannot be megarish. So we see this is the machlekes. You're not allowed to be moitzi if nishtis or if he became a chedesh. What does it mean forever? Lamas means even if he could write, we don't trust him, and that's the machlekes. Shem Gamliel says you could trust someone who could write if he was chedesh if he was a bikech when he's chedesh, and the chavedim say you can't. Amar Papa said like this: He loved Ashmin Rabbi Yechanan have Amidim Shem Gamliel Frushi Tanakama who dosa. Not for Rabbi Yechanan that he told us there's a machlekes, that there's an argument here I would have thought that Rishim Galil is the opinion of the Tanakama. Ilamis means even if you know that he's chorif, that he's sharp, but if he's able to write, maybe you would think that it's okay according to the Tanakama. Kamash it's actually a machlekes. Rishim Galil says you could trust on the writing of a person who's a chedesh, of a pikeach when he's charish, and the Tanakama says he can't. Rabbi Yitzchak Shaita, according to Rabbi Yitzchak, says misgareshes. She could get a divorce. What's the reason why you can't divorce her so that they don't have a minig hefker? So that could be what a lomus means. You can never divorce her, even though midiraisa you could. Midirabanan you can't. So that people don't behave with her in a hefkerdik way. All right, I'm really, really sorry, but I have to go.